Pull up like I'm Jimmy Neutron. I actually need to respond. That's why I had Instagram. I'm gonna leave it. I just gotta go. Jimmy Neutron. Spaceship, spaceship, spaceship. Okay. So, welcome back, normal people. Part 3. I am so very happy that this works. The other day, it wasn't, and I was so depressed already that day. So for some reason the live streaming wasn't working. I don't know why necessarily, but I'm glad that it's here now. I did read a little bit on my own because I was depressed. Basically, Marianne is in Sweden, I think, and she is not doing well. She's seeing this new guy, Lucas, who is an artist. Marianne, I think, met him at like a function or something. I gotta shave my neck. Met him at a function or what have you, I think, and then they started seeing each other. But he like is like a masochist or something. Like he's just not a good dude. Marianne goes over to his place to take pictures, and it gets to like a point where Marianne is just like wildly uncomfortable. Lucas says, "Oh, like I know you love me and I love you," and he's just making her do like these really awful things. And then she like is just like, "No, I'm gonna call the police. Like stop all this." And then she just leaves. So that's where I'm at now. And let's read a little bit. I might be going for a little celebratory happy hour coming up here. So it might only be a short episode. I also don't like what's going on in this neck area, so maybe I'll shave that before I leave. Because I pull up like I'm Jimmy Neutron, and I'm ready out of Yukon. And is anybody who? And is anybody who? Okay, my bad, y'all. I know that must feel very painful for you. Of course, that's very painful. You feel you missed an opportunity to help someone who is suffering. Connell nods dumbly and rubs his eyes. When you lose someone to... Oh, and then I started a new chapter, and Connell is seeing, I think, like his school therapist. He's been having a rough couple months. He's describing how a friend or like a loose friend of his from the past had committed suicide, and he's been in like a kind of tough place since. Yeah. When you lose someone to suicide, it's natural to wonder if there's anything you could have done to help the person, Julian says, and that's the therapist. I'm sure everyone in your friend's life is asking themselves the same question, but at least other people tried to help. This sounds more aggressive or wheedling than Connell intended it to, wheedling. He's surprised to see that instead of responding directly, Jillian just looks at him, looks through the lenses of her glasses, and her eyes are narrowed. She's nodding. Then she lifts a sheaf of paper off the table and holds it upright, businesslike. Well, I've looked at this inventory you filled out for us, she says, and I'll be honest with you, Connell. What I'm seeing is pretty concerning, right? Would it? She shuffles the sheets of paper. He can see on the first sheet where his pen made a small tear. This is what we call a Beck depression inventory, she says. I'm sure you figured out how it works. We assign a score from 0 to 3 for each. item. Now, someone like me might score between, say, 0 and 5 on tests like this, and someone who's going through a mild depressive episode could expect to see a score of maybe 15 or 16. Okay, he says, right. And what we're seeing here is a score of 43. Yeah, okay. So that would put us in the territory of very serious depression. She says, do you think that matches up with your experience? He rubs his eye again. Quietly, he manages to say, yeah. I'm seeing that you're feeling very negatively toward yourself. You're having some suicidal thoughts, things like that. So those are things those are things we take very seriously. Right. At this point, she starts talking about treatment options. She says she's going to recommend that he should see a GP in college to talk about the further options of medication, general physician, psychologist, psychiatric. I forget what it's called. I had one. Yeah, what the fuck is it called? What is the profession called that can prescribe SSRIs? A psychiatrist. What did I say? I don't know. A general psychiatrist. You understand? Oh, Michael, hello. Hi, Michael. Good to see you, dude. Good that you're here, man. Are you gonna be coming down on Sunday? You said. Hopefully, we could catch you at Lazy Dog. Hopefully, love to see you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll be cleaned up then. I'll be cleaned up. Gotta handle this neck. You know what I mean? But I'm excited to see you, man. I'm excited to see you. And I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. I'll continue with the reading. You understand I'm not in a position to make any prescriptions here, she says. He nods, restless now. Yeah, I know that, he says. He keeps... Thank you, man. Thank you. He keeps rubbing his eyes. They're itchy. She offers him a glass of water, but he declines. She starts to ask questions about his family, about his mother, and where she lives, and whether he has brothers and sisters. Any girlfriends or boyfriends on the scene at the moment, Jillian says. No, Connell says. No one like that. Helen came back to Carclea with him for the funeral. The morning of the ceremony, they dressed in his room together in silence, with the noise of Lorraine's hairdryer humming through the wall. Connell was wearing the only suit he owned, which he had bought for his cousin's communion when he was 16. The jacket was tight around his shoulders. He could feel it when he lifted his arms. The sensation that he looked bad preoccupied him. Helen was sitting at the mirror putting on her makeup, and Connell stood behind her to knot his tie. She reached up to touch his face. You look handsome, she said. For some reason that made him angry, like it was the most insensitive, vulgar thing she possibly could have said. He didn't respond. She dropped her hand and then went to put on her shoes. They stopped at the vestibule of the church to speak to someone Lorraine knew. Connell's hair was wet from the rain, and he kept smoothing it, not looking at Helen, not speaking. Then through the opened church doors, he saw Marianne. He'd known she was coming back from Sweden for the funeral. In the doorway, she looked very slim and pale, wearing a black coat, carrying a wet umbrella. He hadn't seen her since Italy. She looked, he thought, almost frail. She started putting her umbrella in the stand inside the door. Marianne, he said. He said this out loud without thinking about it. She looked up and saw him then. Her face was like a small white flower. She put her arms around his neck and he held her tightly. He could smell the inside of her house on her clothes. Wow. The last time he'd seen her, everything had been normal. Rob was still alive then. Connell could have sent a message or even called him and talked to him on the phone. It was possible then. It had been possible. Everyone stood there watching them. He felt that. When they knew it couldn't go on any longer, they let go of one another. Helen patted his arm quickly. People were moving in and out of the vestibule, coats and umbrellas dripping silently onto the tiles. We'd better go and pay our respects, Lorianne said. They lined up with everyone else to shake hands with the family. Rob's mother Elaine was just crying and crying, and they could hear her the whole way down the church. By the time they got halfway up the queue, Connell's legs were shaking. He wished Lorianne was standing with him and not Helen. He felt like he was going to be sick. When it was finally his turn, Rob's father, Val, gripped his hand and said, Connell, good man. I hear you're doing great things above in Trinity. Connell's hands were wringing wet. I'm sorry, he said in a thin voice. I'm sorry, Val. I'm sorry. Val kept gripping his hand and looking into his eyes. Good lad, he said. Thanks for coming. Then it was over. Connell sat down in the first available pew, shivering all over. Helen sat down beside him, looking self conscious, pulling at the hem of her skirt. Lorianne came over and gave him a tissue from her handbag with which he wiped his forehead and upper lip. She squeezed his shoulder. You're all right, she said. You've done your bit, just relax now. And Helen turned her face away as if embarrassed. After Mass, they went to the burial and then back to the tavern to eat sandwiches and drink tea in the ballroom. Behind the bar, a girl from the year below in school was dressed in a white skirt and waistcoat, serving pints. Connell poured Helen a cup of tea and then one for himself. They stood by the wall near the tea trays, drinking and not talking. Connell's cup, Connell's cup rattled in its saucer. Eric came over and stood with them. When he arrived, he was wearing a shiny blue tie. How are things? Eric said. Long time no see. Yeah, I know, said Connell. It's been a fair while, all right. Who's this? Eric said, nodding at Helen. Helen, said Connell. Helen, this is Eric. Eric held out his hand and Helen shook it, balancing her teacup politely in her left hand, her face tensed in effort. The girlfriend, is it? Eric said. With a glance at Connell, she nodded and replied, yes. Eric released her, grinning. You're a double A, he said. She smiled nervously and said, that's right. Must be your fault this lad never comes home anymore, Eric said. It's not her fault. It's my fault, said Connell. I'm only messing with you, said Eric. For a few seconds they stood looking out the room in silence. Helen cleared her throat and said delicately, I'm very sorry for your loss. Eric. Eric turned and gave her a kind, gallant nod. He looked back at the room again. Yeah, hard to believe, he said. Then he poured himself a cup of tea from the pot behind them. Good of Marianne to come, he remarked. I thought she was off in Sweden or someplace. She was, said Connell. She's home for the funeral. She's gone very thin, isn't she? Eric took a large mouthful of tea and swallowed it, smacking his lips. Marianne, detaching herself from another conversation, made her way towards the tea tray. Here's herself. Uh, wait, here's herself, said Eric. You're very good to come all the way back from Sweden, Marianne. She thanked him and started to pour a cup of tea, saying it was nice to see him. Have you met Helen here? Eric asked. Marianne put her teacup down in her saucer. Of course I have, she said. We're in college together. All friendly, I hope, said Eric. No rivalry, I mean? Behave yourself now, said Marianne. Connell watched Marianne pouring the tea, her smiling manner. Behave yourself, and he felt an awe of naturalness. Her easy way of moving through the world. It hadn't been like that in school, quite the opposite. Back then, Connell had been the one who understood how to behave, while Marianne had just aggravated everyone. After the funeral, he cried, but the crying felt like nothing. Back in the fifth year, when Connell had scored a goal for the school football team, Rob had leaped onto the pitch to embrace him. He screamed Connell's name and began to kiss his head with wild, exuberant kisses. It was. Oh, wait. Hold on. My mom's calling me. All right. Let's do. Let's do this last page because I got to run. Um, Michael, I got a job. I got a job. Me and my mom and dad are gonna go celebrate, grab a beer, get some food. Um, yeah, I'm gonna tell the guys on Sunday, but I'm very relieved, very happy. Um, I've been super sad. I've been super sad. It's been a tough month, with the whole Julia business, of course, and then also just feeling very aimless, feeling very disconnected. Um, the job search had been really tumultuous, very precarious. Um, so to have this, to finally get the call to say, "Hey, you got the job," um, it's been a gratifying feeling. I feel like I'll finally have the means to start. I'll have the means, money, I guess, to just start working towards something, or just to start working towards something in general, to know that I'm doing something good. It's work, of course, but I'm happy to be waking up and looking forward to doing something and having structure with my day again, and being able to focus more on you know goals out there. um I feel like having something with my day will kind of motivate me to use my free time more wisely, as like it's been hard to be motivated, in all honesty. So this will be good. Um, but yeah, let's just finish this page. Let's just finish this page. God, why is this dog barking so much, bro? Dumbass dog, dumbass dog. All right. Okay, so Connell still remembers the too hard grip of his arms, and on Deb's night, Rob showing them those photographs of Lisa's naked body. Nothing meant more to Rob than the approval of others, to be thought well of, to be a person of status. He he would be betrayed any confidence, any kindness for the promise of social acceptance. Connell could have judged him for that. He'd been the same way himself, or worse. He had just wanted to be normal, to conceal the parts of himself that he found shameful and confusing. It was Marianne who had shown him other things were possible. Life was different after that. Maybe he had never understood how different it was. The night of the funeral, he and Helen lay in his room in the dark, not sleeping. Helen asked him why he hadn't introduced her to any of his friends. She was whispering so not to wake up Marianne. "I introduced you to Eric, didn't I?" Connell said. I was sensing an argument coming on. So I guess be tuned for next episode. Yeah. Thank you, Michael, for tuning in. I appreciate that a lot. And I can't wait to see you on Sunday. Catch up. Have a good bite. And yeah, I will see you soon. Thank you, bro. I love you a lot. And yeah, see you soon. Goodbye.